It started, as these things so often do, with a traffic-snarled morning and a clipboard full of timing notes that already ran 9 minutes late by the time the guest relations coordinator hurried from curbside to stage C. New York's gray sky pressed low against the studio skylights, but inside the Drew Barrymore show floor crew moved with the bright swing of practiced optimism. Mug racks clinked in the craft services nook, warm gels glowed orange over the audience risers, and a production assistant rehearsed the host's welcome wave one last time just out of camera frame. Into that well-oiled hum stepped Meghan Markle, flanked by a pair of security staff and a new executive assistant clutching a folio so thick it bowed at the clasp. A ripple went ahead of her. Wardrobe wranglers straightened toolboxes. Sound. Tech stepped back from the boom path, and the hair department lined up clip belts as though bracing for an inspection rather than a touch-up. No one could pinpoint the exact second the atmosphere tilted from anticipatory to uneasy, yet by the time the door marked Talent Green Room B swung shut, the air outside felt measurably thinner. Crew members who had survived marathons with hard-charging rock bands and last-minute diva riders exchanged subtle nods that said, "Keep your head down, something's off." The visitors' preferences, delivered in rapid staccato, went far beyond the usual low-sugar snacks and room temperature requests. A key light needed repositioning by 2 degrees to soften jawline shadow. The accent chair upholstery looked too peppy for a brand poised on refined minimalism. A single page of prepared questions arrived back on the producer's desk, marked in red ink, where references to former Duchess had been crossed out in favor of Meghan Sussex. The surname, of course, does not exist in any genealogical sense. Sussex is a peerage, not a family line, yet the directive appeared non-negotiable. Normally such quirks would join the anecdote file titled, "Nothing We Haven't Seen," to be recounted over Friday drinks. What elevated them into crisis potential was the collision of 2 reputations. On one side stood Meghan, carving a post-palace, identity through a whirlwind of content deals and lifestyle launches, fiercely protective of brand narrative. On the other stood Drew Barrymore, a woman who had been famous longer than many of her employees had been alive, yet who sailed that fame by anchoring herself to everyday kindness, handwritten notes to researchers, hugs for nervous first time, guests, cake on crew birthdays, without fail. What Meghan's team read as reasonable image control, Drew's family-like staff experienced as a deliberate downgrading of their professionalism, their names, even their eye contact. Rehearsal audio leaked under the door. Meghan's speaking voice layered with the polite monotone of a publicist, guiding her through bullet points on philanthropic synergy. Several times the publicist's sentences ended in pregnant pauses that went unanswered, suggesting the principal's attention wandered elsewhere. Meanwhile, in Makeup A veteran artist whose kit once powdered Tom Hanks before Oscar press nights stood idle, brushes poised, quietly informed that the guest preferred to touch up privately. Across the hall, lighting chief Lani Bennett reopened her focusing app to recalculate lumens yet again, muttering that the new angles would bleach out the host's face unless gels were swapped in the remaining 7 minutes. A logistical impossibility without jeopardizing the entire lighting plot. When Bennett voiced the concern, the assistant with the folio reportedly replied, "We'll risk it." Drew entered the green room corridor moments later, hallmark smile bright as the sunflower print on her vintage midi dress. She offered outstretched arms, thanked Meghan for traveling in on a chilly filming day, and congratulated her on the upcoming product rollout she'd glimpsed in trade journals. Witnesses recall Meghan's polite nod, no handshake, before she turned to consult her assistant over an iPad displaying a seating schematic. The exchange consumed perhaps 40 seconds. Enough, however, for Drew to spot 3 anxious faces behind the guest, a stage manager, a floor runner, and a junior camera operator all hovering, awaiting instructions they now feared to issue. The host's glance flicked between them, reading discomfort the way seasoned actors read subtext. Without missing a beat, she pivoted back, reiterated how thrilled she was to dig into the conversation, and excused herself to double-check a cue card or 2. though every card had already been approved. Inside the control room, Director Eric Soto followed the live feed from backstage cams. Monitors flickered between Camera 2's wide shot of the sofa area, Camera 3's punch-in on Drew's entrance mark, and a tight shot of the green room. Dr. Where an audience warm-up coordinator now waited, face stiff with the half-smile professionals wear when things are sliding sideways, yet the bleed still seems containable. Soto toggled his talk back. "Keep those laughs juicy, Casey. We're going to need energy out there." The countdown hit 10, and the curtain parted on Drew's exuberant skip step. She delivered her opening monologue with the breezy intimacy daytime viewers cherish, self-deprecating quips about overwatering her houseplants, a riff on the universal pain of misplacing your phone while you're talking on it. And the studio. Audience responded on cue, laughter swelling like a warm tide. Meghan observed from the wings, face unreadable, while her assistant scanned the set for final micro-adjustments. Just before introduction, a runner approached with a freshly printed cue sheet reflecting last-second segment order changes. The file assistant accepted it without thanks and, according to multiple witnesses, shredded the sheet into a pocket rather than handing it along. Under spotlight, Meghan glided to the armchair opposite Drew's. From the control booth, Lonnie Bennett winced as the newly tilted key light slashed too hot across one side of Drew's cheek, flattening dimension. Exactly the consequence she had flagged earlier. Still, the host rolled with it, leaning slightly to shift her own shadow, making subtle adjustments invisible to casual viewers but obvious to trained eyes. She launched softball openers designed to let new guests relax. How was the morning commute? What New York snack is a must on your itinerary? Meghan answered with carefully sculpted brevity. Traffic teaches mindfulness. A particular downtown smoothie aligns with her wellness philosophy. The words were perfectly pleasant. The problem lay in the delivery. Each sentence arrived pre-packaged, shiny, risk-free, a succession of polished sound bites that left no space for the spontaneous sparks daytime talk shows feed on. Audience mics picked up restlessness, a cough mid-row, the squeak of a purse strap. Drew pressed forward, pivoting to motherhood territory, a perennial goldmine for empathy. "Tell me about the chaos of bedtime. Does bathwater hit the bathroom ceiling at your house too?" Meghan smiled, described a ritual of recording audio. Messages, so her children could fall asleep to her voice while she's on work trips. The suggestion sailed past relatability into something closer to corporate training video, and pockets of the audience stiffened. Noticing the temperature dip, Drew reached for connecting anecdotes from her own life, her daughters begging for one more story, her own childhood on film sets teaching her the value of a quick hug in a folding chair between takes. But each attempt to weave threads of shared experience met Meghan's responses trimmed so short they fell to the studio floor, before connection could not. Halfway through the segment, viewers at home would later describe a sensation akin to leaning forward, only to find a plexiglass barrier between themselves and the guest. Even Drew's trademark empathy, capable of melting glacial interviews in day. The past slid across that surface and slid back unanswered. Camera 3 caught Meghan's hands in her lap, knuckles pale, one thumb stroking the other in a small, repetitive arc. Body language experts on social media froze the frame that evening and called it a classic self-soothing gesture used when someone perceives threat or conflict. What conflict, watchers debated, existed in such a benign setting? Perhaps the invisible one, the fight to control narrative versus the host's gentle insistence on something spontaneous, unscripted, human. When the first commercial break arrived, Drew thanked Meghan and stood to lead her toward the prop table for a planned second-act demonstration of eco-friendly household hacks. Off camera, Meghan leaned toward her assistant, whispered, and the assistant approached the prop mistress with a new stipulation. The reusable lunch wrap demonstration must swap plastic-free beeswax wraps for a deluxe line affiliated with Meghan's forthcoming brand. The prop mistress, caught in an unresolvable time crunch, stammered that the requested items were not on site. The assistant sighed audibly, muttered, "Disappointing," and pivoted away. A stagehand overheard, cheeks reddening, under the headset. In the control room, Eric Soto watched the minutes bleed. A quick regroup was possible, but only if cooperation flowed both directions. He toggled again. Stage left, copy. Let's cue the backup segment if necessary. Tension crackled, back through the earpiece. The next block on air began passably enough. Meghan performed the hack with the original props, albeit with visible reluctance, while Drew cheer-captained the table demonstration. Yet when Drew offered the final whisk of a mason jar vinaigrette for tasting, Meghan declined with a polite no, murmuring something about current dietary calibration. A hush slid across the bleachers. Even home viewers later felt the vacuum, where a simple sip and smile would have lived. Drew's eyes narrowed a fraction, then widened again into practiced cheer. But behind the iris spark something hardened, observers said, like a door quietly clicking shut. The segment wrapped early to accommodate timing drift. As soon as cameras faded to sponsor graphics, Drew motioned Meghan toward a corridor away from the main backstage swirl. Only 3 people witnessed the ensuing conversation. Drew, Meghan, and floor manager Tiana Graves stationed discreetly by the fire equipment alcove. What Graves later relayed to colleagues trickled outward by nightfall and detonated across entertainment news sites by morning. Drew, voice level but unyielding, began with gratitude for Meghan's presence, then pivoted, without segue, to the treatment of staff. She referenced the ignored makeup team, the lighting override, the abrupt beeswax swap, the shredded cue card. "You can't do this to my staff," she said, according to Graves, the words delivered not as a reprimand, but as a final boundary. Meghan's reply allegedly fused surprise and frustration, a defense that optimal conditions served the audience, a suggestion that misinterpretations snowball quickly, a hint that royal protocol once protected her from micromanaging such details. Drew listened, hands folded, then repeated her point with surgical clarity. Respect transcends brand. Courtesy outranks control. In this workspace, collaboration wins. The exchange lasted perhaps 4 minutes. No voices raised, no profanity. Yet the temperature of resolve radiating off Drew reportedly set gooseflesh on Graves's arms. When Meghan stepped back toward Green Room B, her assistant drifted behind, eyes lowered. The scheduled photo banner shot against the show's pink step and repeat never happened. Meghan chose to leave directly, citing an urgent scheduling shift. Security escorted her through a side-loading dock, bypassing waiting fans. Inside, Studio C relief unfolded like a soft exhale. Crew who had worked with Drew since pilot days said the atmosphere snapped back to its default sunshine the second she re-entered the stage, praising everyone for pivoting so gracefully. A replacement guest, already on standby for next week, was ushered into hair and makeup. The schedule realigned in under 15 minutes. Viewers at home never saw the tremor, though many sensed after broadcast that something intangible felt off, a suspicion later confirmed when gossip accounts teased a royal-adjacent meltdown at a daytime studio. Online, dissected clips accelerated through algorithmic funnels. TikTok creators looped Meghan's stiff smiles, overlaying captions like, "The face you make when authenticity is a beta version." Twitter threads argued over whether the host blindsided a vulnerable guest, or whether the guest walked in with ego armor so thick no conversation could penetrate. LinkedIn think pieces popped up by midnight, using the incident as case study in stakeholder engagement. One viral Medium post, penned by a crisis communications veteran, tallied Meghan's public stumbles, Spotify exit, postponed podcast reboot, languishing Netflix queue, and posited that the missing ingredient across ventures was genuine rapport rather than market positioning. Inside the offices of Archewell, staff woke to brand monitor dashboards bleeding red. Sentiment analysis reported a double-digit drop in positive keywords, spike in phrases cold and entitled. A morning call weighed release of a clarifying statement. Miscommunication, gratitude to Drew, commitments to kindness. Ultimately, they issued nothing, hoping silence might shorten the news cycle. It did not. By afternoon, a British tabloid splashed the corridor confrontation across its homepage, claiming Meghan had been reprimanded like a rookie intern. American outlets tempered language but still headlined with variations of Drew stands up for crew. The Barrymore production, meanwhile, kept its press room quiet. Internally, they circulated a brief. No one speaks on the record. We let the footage speak for itself. Ratings from the episode, once numbers processed, revealed a curious spike. Average viewer counts plateaued, but social engagement indices soared. Advertisers called, intrigued by the demonstration that daytime could still generate watercooler talk in a streaming era. 3 days later, Drew appeared at a charity literacy gala in Queens, greeted reporters, and fielded a single question about guest relations with a tender smile. "I treat everyone here like family. Families have wonderful days, and sometimes they have learning curves. We keep loving anyway." She offered no further detail, leaving tabloids to chase echoes. Behind closed doors, network executives studied the incident for policy gaps. Should future guest contracts include explicit courtesy clauses? Would that alienate A-list talent? Could host autonomy override brand management armies? The memo drafting began. Industry veterans recalled earlier flashpoints: Christian Bale's on-set tirade, Ariana Grande's donut lick scandal, and how quickly a veneer of invincibility can crack under the spotlight of ordinary decency. They contrasted those with golden legends. Tom Hanks pausing production to thank every extra by name, Keanu Reeves carrying equipment cases. The narrative forming around Meghan risked placing her on the wrong list. Reputation economists know the cost: endorsement hesitancy, interview gatekeeping, collab partners hedging bets. Social media polls asked whether royalty still carries any soft power advantage. One trending analysis graphed Google search interest over the past decade, showing a steady decline in default fascination with hereditary titles, interrupted only by spikes of scandal. Younger demographics, surveyors noted, filter legacy status through authenticity metrics, charitable action, relatability, meme potential. Fail those tests, and blue blood allure evaporates faster than yesterday's trending sound. Within Meghan's camp, strategists pitched a recalibration tour, pop-up charity appearances without press teams, guest hosting a grassroots podcast, volunteering incognito at shelters. Yet skeptics argued that tactical humility looks cynical if timed too close to backlash. Better, they said, to retreat, recalibrate long-term storytelling, allow memory half-life to do its quiet erasure. Still, the Drew moment refused quick burial. Employees at multiple talk shows tweeted cryptic thanks to unnamed hosts who protect crew, fueling conjecture about wider patterns. Daytime gossip programs dedicated segments titled "Manners Matter," citing the incident as cautionary tale. Academic commentators on power dynamics joined weekend panels, discussing how modern celebrity flattens hierarchy. The royal and the rest share algorithmic space now, judged in the same swipe. At the heart of the storm, Drew's crew carried on, resetting light grids, loading teleprompter scripts, prepping next week's cooking demonstration with a comedian chef known for singing while sautéing. In private corners, some admitted the encounter rattled them. Others shrugged, chalking it up to a chapter in the long book of show business oddities. Yet all agreed on one thing. When their boss said, "You can't do this to my staff," she reminded them why they show up before dawn. For a job that pays more in camaraderie than overtime. Respect, one grip noted, is the only currency that stays stable when fame's bubble market crashes. 4 weeks slipped by, commentary thinned, and another viral distraction claimed public attention. A pop star's surprise courthouse wedding, a mega franchise film's box office implosion. Still, among industry insiders, the phrase "the Drew" line entered quiet parlance, shorthand for the non-negotiable defense of backstage dignity. Agents coached clients. Cross that line and the optics will scorch longer than any media training can douse. Meghan, meanwhile, resurfaced on social feeds, posting sun-drenched images of coastal hikes, quotes about growth printed in pastel serif, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of her brand's product testing labs. Captions emphasize teamwork and gratitude. Comments split between heart emoji encouragement and reminders of behavior recollected from the Barrymore taping. Algorithms continued tallying sentiment. Late one evening, a junior producer on Drew's staff locked up Stage C after rechecking tomorrow's prop list. The corridor lights dimmed, but the plaque on the green room door glinted in exit sign glow. The producer, who had stood quietly with downcast eyes during the day of tension, reached out and tapped the brass plate once, as if sealing it. Then, she walked into the chill night, certain that whatever storms tomorrow's headlines brewed, the show inside these walls would meet them with the unflashy, resilient power of a workplace that values every name on the call sheet, from marquee to mop handle.